As Christians celebrated the beginning of Advent this weekend, we continue our discussion on this time of the liturgical year. Recently, we caught up with the head of a Catholic university in Ohio on what Advent means to him. Joining us now to share more about the importance of Advent is Father Dave Pivonka, president of the Franciscan University of Steubenville. Father Dave, great to see you as always. We often hear Advent called Little Lent. Can you explain to us why that is, and also how can we better get into the spirit of Advent?
Well, thank you so much for letting me be with you, Tracy. It's always a pleasure. Yeah, as Lent is a time of preparation of 40 days, Advent is also a time of preparation. And honestly, I think, unfortunately, what we focus on is just focus on Christmas. And Advent is obviously a time of preparation for Christmas, but unfortunately we often just skip the Advent part and we go straight to Christmas. And particularly as a Franciscan, that for Francis, the Christmas season is the greatest time, and to be able to take 4 weeks, depending on the cycle, to be able to prepare for Christmas is just really, really important. The main themes, obviously, are hope. Is that if we think about this, we are preparing our hearts for the coming of our Savior. And there's a way that we can connect with the men and women who went before us, who every year prayed, Jesus come, or the Lord, that the Lord would come. And we get to celebrate that. We get to celebrate time of preparation for Jesus' coming. So it's a time of preparation. It's a time of excitement. It's a time of penance. Lent is just such an incredibly rich season.
Yeah, and this Advent is taking place during the year of St. Joseph, the guardian of the Holy Family. How can St. Joseph serve as a role model for the faithful, especially fathers, as we prepare for Christ's birth?
Well, honestly, I think, Tracy, you said the word faithful. And for me, whenever I reflect on St. Joseph, that's really what I go to is that St. Joseph was a man who was faithful to the Lord. He was faithful to being obedient to the Lord. He was faithful to doing what the Lord wanted him to do. The other is, and it's interesting, just kind of the way the year of St. Joseph has ended. St. Joseph is such a silent figure, but with a great influence. And my concern is just over time, I think this year he's just kind of drifted away, and that's unfortunate. So the fact that you're asking the question, I think, is so important. For the father, I think lots of homes, they need the father to be able to step up. So I don't know what it looks like in particular some people's homes, but if the father can be the one who's organizing some of the time of prayer, that the father be the one that calls the family together for the Advent prayers each evening as you're lighting the candle, that be something that the children and the wife celebrate, but also that the father really plays that role, the same role that the father, St. Joseph, played, and that is forming his family, protecting and interceding for his family. So I think that engagement in the process and the journey of Advent is really important for a father as well.
Yeah, Father Dave, that's a great point. Here's something, of course, and maybe not a lot of people do know this, but St. Francis of Assisi, the founder, of course, of the Franciscan order, is credited with staging the very first nativity scene. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, it's beautiful. In a little village called Greccio, Francis was there and he was praying with the people as they were preparing for Christmas. And I'll just reiterate, for Francis, the greatest feast is Christmas. It as great as Easter is. But for him, he just couldn't imagine that God would come and take on flesh. And he was just enamored with that. So he wanted to do something special in this little village of Greccio. So what he decided to do was literally create a nativity scene with shepherds and animals, and then having a baby that would be present at this to help people see. Everything about Francis was really incarnational, that he believed if people could see, that they may be able to understand more what God has done. Well, there's a beautiful part of that particular gentleman who was in the congregation that evening, he had this vision or this image of Jesus, and Jesus was sleeping, and nobody could wake him up. And as the story goes, Francis embraced the baby Jesus, and the baby Jesus began to wake up. And this is really the ministry of Francis, is waking up in the hearts of the people a love for Jesus. So Francis would always return back to Christmas. And he would also, just real quickly, make a relationship between Christmas and the Eucharist, that every time we celebrate Eucharist, Christ is coming to us again as we're celebrating at Easter, at Christmas. So the early nativity scenes, there would be a little crib underneath the altar, but baby Jesus wouldn't be put there. And the thought is that when Jesus comes to us in the Eucharist, he feels that manger, he feels our heart. So Francis always made a connection between Christmas and the Eucharist.
Yeah, and before I let you go, Father Dave, quickly, can you tell us what this season leading up to Christmas means for you and your Franciscan brothers?
Well, thank you. It's really, for us, it's, obviously I'm at Franciscan University, so it's a time of us, it's a little bit quieter on campus because the students, thank the Lord, are home with their families and they get to be able to spend time with their families. But we have a little nativity scene here next to the Portiuncula, which were just images that were so key to Francis. So it gives us a little bit of extra time to pray, to prepare. For us, it's a time of hope. Christmas should always be. I know this has been a difficult year for so many people. For me personally, with some of the things that happened with my family, it was a difficult year. But Christmas is always a reminder that there is hope and that Jesus comes in the midst of our chaos, in the midst of the craziness that is our life in our world right now, that Jesus always breaks into that. So it's a time of us as friars, a little bit slower to be able to prepare for that.
And we're going to leave it right there. Father Dave, thank you so much for speaking with us today about Advent. We really appreciate it. Father Dave Pivonka, president of the Franciscan University of Steubenville. Thank you again, and God bless you.
Thank you so much.